One of the biggest moves in Dynasty and in the NFL was actually not a move. It was Jimmy Garoppolo staying in San Francisco. That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, we're going to keep drawing stick figures. We are not good artists. And Jimmy Garoppolo right there, breathing down the neck, giving the 49ers outs. If I was Trey Lance, I would not be feeling good today.
I got a question for you. How does 203 as a starting draft position for Trey Lance over the past month feel right now? How does that
feels
feel?
A little low. I've seen him in the mid first of a couple times, so feels a little.
At 104, right? You're the second person that
104. Another one was 106, and that is all in, no outs. I know what card I'm getting on the river. So this is a competitive 49ers team, and they have a chance with any bad game, any bad half to say, let's just kick it old school like 2021, get Garoppolo back in there. I will say we have the opportunity potentially for Garoppolo to see starts this year for super flex teams and two quarterback leagues here in Dynasty. So that's going to be on ice, but he still has a really high probability to probably see starts this year in some capacity, injury or otherwise. And then projected week one starter for 2023, because now he's going to pretty much get to control his own destiny in the offseason.
Yeah, I honestly, from a dynasty perspective, I think this really helps Garoppolo because of that, right? He will control his own destiny in a way that if he got released right now, he doesn't, right? And so that is something that I think, and even if they put him on ice for a year, like we've actually seen that help people. We've seen that help Trubisky, for example, right? We've seen it help some other guys where actually being, it's a change of teams, it's different circumstances, but I don't think that this necessarily hurts his hurts his long-term prospects of being a starter. So yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting for both of them. I think it's really interesting. It probably opens up a buy low window on Garoppolo because you're not changing teams. You're not getting a crack this year. And listen, I mean, we've had our doubts, and I covered them I will say this about this though. I do think it's important to understand the context of this. I cover our training camp reports for Footballguys. I do San Francisco. So I've been reading training camp reports every day for a month plus. And Lance, I would say, had a pretty good camp. Gets himself in trouble with some accuracy stuff. But I will say, in no point in the past 6 weeks was there any speculation about the fact that Garoppolo was going to return from any beat writer. That never happened. So this is a relatively late development. I saw it percolate a little bit. I saw Rappaport mention it, but that was the only mention that I've seen until he actually signed the deal. So take that information for what you will, but this is of surprise across the board.
Yeah, and Trey Lance can, be the good soldier and say all the right things of, it was great to have him last year and it's going to be great to have him this year and all this, but this team is not going to have a long leash, and they did not hand it over readily to Trey Lance last year. They did not hand it over this offseason. They brought back Garoppolo. I find it hard to believe that this is all just to prevent Seattle being in the division and Garoppolo preventing the 49ers from going where they want to go. Like a singular team block for let's just keep Garoppolo on this team. And again, let's just play this out, because we were in the camp of, we were discussing this months ago saying, we'll believe it when we see it. Garoppolo is still on this team, and he is now going to be on this team for the foreseeable future this year. And I cannot think that this is the quarterback that you would bring back, the quarterback that, the Trey Lance is going to be your guy. You traded so much to get him, and yet now you're still holding on to the past. And I'm saying that as someone who has always said, get as many good quarterbacks as humanly possible, let them figure it out. But the NFL does not operate that way. We have not seen that occur. I have a hard time thinking that Trey Lance, based on what the information we currently have, plays well enough the entire season to not see Garoppolo in some capacity. I find it hard to believe. So this is another one of, why would you bring him back unless you had some inkling that you were going to play him at some point? And I don't think NFL teams, we saw 3 or 4 teams drop all their quarterbacks today.
Mhm.
so
Right.
we'll just bring back somebody. We'll put
Right.
someone on the practice squad. We're going to create spaces and then circle back to this. Dallas is like, we don't know. Like, so I just think that teams don't do this, and it should be a little alarming. It should raise bells that we have not seen this, and yet the 49ers are going to do it.
Yeah, I was as you were talking, I just went back and wanted to look at some to try to think of when the last time like anything like this really happened. Tua with the stuff with Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? They kind of kept him there, but he was there already. And then they cut him loose after the 2020 season. Obviously Tyrod Taylor and then Justin Herbert came in after the thing, but again, that was a bridge type situation as it was. We haven't really seen, I don't remember a recent one where you actually had a veteran who was a bridge actually held over another year. I mean, you go back
Like
to
Alex Smith, when they're, instead of turning it over to Mahomes, they just
right.
go, Alex, you're back in here. Come on.
Totally. Like Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson, they cut Flacco loose. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You start going back, yeah. So I'm looking back and I don't see anything of recent note where that has happened.
And I think Garoppolo, just to spin this for Dynasty, that I think if you go towards, I actually helped a listener make a deal for Garoppolo today, and I think the construction is something along the lines of a third and a player. And if you can get there, because I think Garoppolo is one of the few guys, and I think Jordan Love is the other one, where you say not a current starter, but could see without an injury being a future week one starter, which is really a high bar for quarterbacking and not need an injury, not someone that is number two and gets thrust into the starting role. I think Garoppolo and Love are the two guys that can be 2023 or beyond week one starters without needing that elevation.
What do you think about? I'm glad you brought up Jordan Love because I've thought, like, this thought has crossed my mind as well. What's success look like for him? Is it Trubisky? Like, do you get where he gets to another team and they draft someone that's not a top 10 guy, that's not a top 20 guy, right? That's maybe it's a later first or something like that, and he gets basically like I think Trubisky could beat out Pickett and hold off Pickett. Is that what you're sort of hoping for, or is there a better? I mean, I think the better story is either Rodgers retires or Rodgers gets hurt and he plays really well. Like that's. But assuming that those two things don't happen, assuming nothing happens to Rodgers, is that really your best bet for Jordan Love?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. That he probably won't go into a depth chart, if it is a new depth chart where they say it's all on you, Jordan, and not you. And I think that you're just not gonna have another out. It's gonna be probably another top 100 pick. Maybe it's let's just use the Tyrod Taylor sort of moniker, that type of player, to say we have other options. We're going to make you earn this in camp, a Ryan Fitzpatrick type. And and he might get some, 2 for 20 type deal, like a strong backup deal with starter potential. It's kind of what I see for Jordan Love. I just think almost like Jimmy Garoppolo staying in San Francisco. I think Jordan Love, if he actually gets paid a new deal from Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers is still there, that is going to be just the icing and the cherry and the chocolate syrup and everything on top of this whole thing. Because Green Bay doubles down, triples down, never releases him, never trades him, and he's still there. Rodgers is 42. He looks more like Nick Cage every single day, and he is still one of the best. Still in the top 10 for the NFL's top 100 that year. Brady's still 48 and playing and you still got Jordan Love there. He's 27, yet to start. I mean, that's like Garoppolo in New England to a higher level of just waiting my time. Checks watch. When's this bus coming? So yeah. I think, man, that's a big one. So moving on to some of the running back moves, Jordan, we've had some notable players released. We've had some players freed in terms of their depth chart and their outlook for this season. Of the last few days, what has stood out to you in terms of most impactful and most interesting heading into week one now?
Well, my most rostered rookie got shot, so that wasn't necessarily the best thing, and we're glad that Brian Robinson's okay, but a scary situation. So that's obviously front of mind. I will say it looks like this could have been fatal and tragic. It looks like, all things considered, it looks like he's doing better.
It's not even season ending at this point from
Correct.
what we know. And you had mentioned something before we started recording, which was, they haven't, there's incentive for them not to put him on IR before the 53. He quote unquote made the 53. And now he still may be put on IR, at least 4 games. Let's see where things go. It's still projecting. We heard from the good doctor, Gene Bramwell, that, this is going to be a month-to-month thing more than a week-to-week thing. And we still don't have a lot of details about what the injuries sustained are, what the wounds are, and how much is that going to prevent him from training at all, getting back into football shape? What does that look like? So this really could be a back half of the year thing. Talking optimistically, it could be he's not really a factor at all. Or October, we may see him get carries. But I think at a minimum, talk about a curvy road to get all the way home, that Antonio Gibson was on a track to a scary outcome here in terms of what could his role be? What's the downside of Antonio Gibson? And yet he gets new life in terms of an opportunity to be the clear number one option. They let go of Jared Patterson, but they kept Jonathan Williams. And if they don't splash the pot, Washington does. And even if they do, honestly, I mean, you're less than 2 weeks from kickoff. I don't think it affects week 1 or maybe even week 2 that much at all. Gibson gets new life and a new shot here for the same kind of role that made him a top 18, top 20 player the past couple of years.
How strong do you think his alibi is for the shooting of from Brian Robinson? Did he order the code red on Brian Robinson? No. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that this does breathe new life into him, and it certainly, like, he's got a better chance to fend off the challenge to his job for sure. I was thinking about this earlier as I was doing some other work. What's your expectation? You draft Brian Robinson in May, right? And you draft him at, I don't know, somewhere between 206 and 303, somewhere in that sort of range. As a round 3 guy, right? Your expectation is, hey, if I'm getting late season work, right, that's kind of like what a success track looks like. We were way ahead of that. It
blessed
appeared.
With
Correct.
Seeing maybe 10 plus carries in week 1.
Right. And then now, we're actually back to kind of what that expectation was. Or we hope. We'll find out more. But I do think it's the fact that they didn't put him on IR before the roster cutdown happens. Does speak to the fact that they believe that he can play this year, because if they didn't, right, if they put him on IR before the cutdown happens, they lose him for the year. Now they can bring him. Now, if they choose to put him on IR at some point in this week or before week 1, they can bring him back and they can return him at some point. So we'll see on that. I think, again, if they get to week 1 and haven't put him on IR, we're looking at a return in the next month or so. That could be pretty nice for him. And we're all rooting for him pretty hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And some in the chat, obviously, that the fact that sometimes not so fortunate in terms of whether return to play, but return to life, return to his typical way of life, just as a regular functioning person. That's step 1. First you crawl, then you walk, and then you run, and then you play football, beyond all those things. So Step by step. And like you said, I mean, we've gotten positive reports 2 or 3 different times in a short time frame, which is all positive for Brian Robinson getting back to football, beyond getting back to life here. And the other big one, and I find this interesting, is that a lot of people reacting very strongly to Marlon Mack being released by Houston, where I find that interesting that's what Dameon Pierce supporters, elevators needed, was Marlon Mack to not be on the team, implying that Marlon Mack on the team means you have to have a lot of reservation about enthusiasm towards Dameon Pierce. But you still have Rex Burkhead, Darren Gubawale. I didn't track them by snap, but I watched every game, and Dameon Pierce did not see much time in the passing game. And I thought it was interesting they kept 2 pass-centric guys on a team that isn't projected to be very good. So I will find this interesting to see if Dameon Pierce is going to get much of that hurry-up work, 2-minute drill. We're behind in the second half of games type stuff. He may be one of those. Did he score a touchdown? Yes or no? And does that mean he had a good game?
Yeah, right. And that's with game script, with a team that could pick first in next year's draft. Do you want a guy that's not getting the receiving role, right? Is that something you want to? And is it? I mean, I keep going back to like what's success look like for a day 3 running back, like, and I keep going, but the name that keeps popping in my mind is Jordan Howard, and like is he maybe a little bit more diverse or a little bit more he's got more passing game utility than Jordan Howard, but even with a guy like Jordan Howard, like he never truly got all the way home for a high-end season, right? Because he didn't get that receiving aspect. And if we're already sort of seeing that, right, 2 receiving guys, like you said, are sort of cutting into his role, that could hurt him. Like this makes Burkhead super interesting as an injury away guy, though, I will say, because he's the guy that could consolidate the role. Right? You look at some of these guys that where your injury away guys, they can't necessarily consolidate a role, or they kind of need 2 things to happen. Right, with a guy like Burkhead, another one's actually Boston Scott, who could actually consolidate a role with the benefit of 1 injury that's like dirt cheap right now. So, keeping those guys in mind, right? Again, Burkhead, like 27th round in startup drafts this offseason, like, and I still think he's drawing plenty live at this point to potentially help you in 2022.
Yeah, and it feels like as we see future seasons, I remember the James Robinson effect, and who was the one that came out of the ether last year, if you can draw it offhand, but we had a running back that came right into Mattison? It. No, but anyway, I might be thinking of James Robinson from 2 or 3 years ago, but just coming out and
Mitchell.
There you go, Elijah Mitchell. Yep. And it's interesting to see that now it seems like every time, like I saw Dameon Pierce go 104, 105, 106 in rookie drafts in the past couple of weeks, as this monorail momentum is building here. And so I think now, I mean, if you draft at that price, I mean, you are expecting a minimum multi-year starter, and I would say competition not coming in next offseason. The odds of trading him for equal or more value, even with the starting role, is not a high percentage here. He's got to really elevate beyond all the factors we know now. And we've said it before with previous options that day 3, you never feel safe. In the off season, every day, you never feel safe. Free agency and the draft, you just will not feel safe with a number of different prospects and number of different free agents for coming in and being a serious hindrance minimum, if not overtaking you for the role. So just keep that in mind. That's not to say that Pierce doesn't have a good week 1. That's not to say, like Elijah Mitchell, he doesn't have some good games as a rookie, but I think you need to have a perspective. And I do think this is different than you drafted Pierce at 210 or 305 or whatever a few months ago. And now you say, well, I like him, so I'm holding him. That's not what again, I would probably be action planning it differently and seeing what I could extract in the marketplace for running backs that I think have a better chance to be more sustained. But I will say that is different than shifting your rookie board entirely like a Rolodex and going, well, now it says Dameon Pierce at 105, and that's the pick that I made. That's a completely different thing than you have equity in the pick that you made a few months ago for that day three rookie running back. Just be very careful.
Yeah. I have my home league drafts next Sunday, and it's always it's a keeper league, so it's not true dynasty. So the this year aspect of it's great, but I have 101. I'm drafting Hall, and I'm sitting at 104, 105, and 106. And so I feel pretty good about the fact that I'm going to get Kenneth Walker just because someone's going to trip up and Jeff Pierce in front of my guy. So, so it's definitely, I think that there's going to be landmines along the way. And I'm not going, I think now's the perfect opportunity to spin him and really take a chunk out of a higher asset, right? Don't sell for what you bought him. Like, don't make a lateral move, like really go up higher and use this as an opportunity to get a player that's truly an upgrade, an asset that's truly an upgrade for you.
Yeah, cornerstone wide receiver, a running back that you think is on a multi-year window. But, I mean, it might be Pearson a lot less than you think in a 2-for-1, 3-for-2 type construction that you're able to get that done. And again, you're not taking anything away. And if anything, you might be elevating the potential upside for the player production-wise in your lineup this year. from that other running back that might be older. They might be older. Brace yourself. They might be 26 plus, but they still might have more quality years in them than Dameon Pierce. Yeah. Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 118 of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. I want to remind you about the Football Guys membership subscription over there. Jordan mentioned it last week, but the League Dominator, Draft Dominator combo there, you get your apps, and these run your team. It makes it so it highlights your all the players on your team. You can quickly, like what I love to do when I'm looking at trades, especially with IDPs, all you do is select the team and boom, you can see already the week 1 projections for that player. If you're looking for starting options, you can also supplement your own roster, but it's really easy to look at that, see especially players and positions you might not be as familiar with. It automatically highlights them in season-long projections in terms of that week 1. Like I said, it makes the waiver wire a breeze. And again, you got these redrafts coming up the final week leading up to week 1. Boom, so easy. You put in your league, you import it, and you can actually run it as you are navigating your draft. So you want to go and sign up to footballguys.com at footballguys.com/dynasty winners.
It's time for the Stash of the Week, powered by Sleeper.
That's right. Sponsored by Sleeper. We got our Stash of the Week. Jordan already mentioned it earlier in the show, but we got Rex Burkhead. Always a fan of the show here with Rex Burkhead, and he is one that now with no Marlon Mack, you mentioned he kind of has a two-way go to monopolize that production if Dameon Pierce were to falter. And he can also be the hurry-up back potentially, but he's big enough. He's stuck around into his 30s now, a veteran that you cannot forget about, low center of gravity. We've seen him with big workloads in the past in specific games, and now he has that 3-down skill set going into a prime position where we know Marlon Mack is now out of the mix in Houston.
Yeah, and we've liked him for a while. From when he was in Cincinnati, right? He's just been hanging around forever. And he has the two-way ability. I think we really like him. I was joking just this week that Travion Williams is like kind of on the early career Rex Burkhead track.
You got to start in Cincinnati. One of the mandates is you start deep down the depth chart in Cincinnati,
right? Being
groomed. I do wonder. I think we do have to monitor Houston as well as a few of these other running back depth charts to see if someone like Sony Michel or Kenyon Drake. It looks like Drake might be going to Baltimore, but some of these bigger names are still potential thorns and still potential impacts. Maybe not for week 1, but I think that is something to monitor for Houston because we saw them in the past. They kept Royce Freeman, for example, who I was kind of surprised that they had any plans. He was playing deep into some of these preseason games, and they let Marlon Mack go. Don't want to say that that's indicative of anything over with the Rams and Cam Akers. Maybe I am, maybe I am not. But with Achilles, it just goes to show you how much of a struggle it can be to get all the way back for Marlon Mack, who I'm not saying he's as talented as Cam Akers, and certainly on a different career arc, but I think it also speaks to if you lose 10, 15, 20% over a 2-year sample or from your peak, that can be a big deal for almost any player in the league. And Burkhead, he's available, I would say 25 and fewer roster spots. I looked in a lot of mine where it's 28 plus. He's already gone. So this is a moderate stash and probably a shallower stash on your FFPC and then on up into your medium depth rosters. Definitely want to check on Rex Burkhead. If he was out there before, he's probably going to get scooped up before week 1.
Yeah. Hey, before we jump into trades, did you have any reaction to the potential non-trade, but trade interest, I guess you'd say, in Alexander Mattison? I found that interesting. I found it a little hyperbolic that like 14 teams were interested in him, or whatever a crazy quote was out there. But I was semi-interested in like, all right, is he like, I gotta stay close to my phone. I need to see if there's a trade notification that happens.
Exactly. And everyone was paying attention to the wrong shiny objects there. Everyone was talking about Ty Chandler. And it's like, did Kene Nwangwu, is he not around anymore? Because he's a legit talent as well. He's looked good every time he saw the field on offense. But yeah, Mattison, last year of his deal, if the Vikings aren't gonna have him next year, and you would think with the way they're backfilling, and honestly, they had the best top 4, top 5 I saw in the preseason of any running back core. Why would you keep Mattison? Is he really that much better to keep him this season when you can get something for him? And yeah, I thought there was some smoke there, and no deal as of the time of this recording, but he was one that you would imagine whatever team brings him in, he walks in as the running back too. So that would be a setting where I think it'd be pretty lateral. It's a good situation in Minnesota. I still think he'd be the easy 1A if Dalvin Cook were out, and there's big upside in that offense. So I wouldn't really be moved one way positively or negatively, other than the fact that the new team might have more allegiance to him, and he sustains in that role into 2023 and perhaps is even the starter.
It gives me a little bit more confidence in the fact that there actually is going to be a market for him in free agency, where you never truly know, but there's enough smoke there to think that, all right, maybe he signs a James Conner or plus type of deal. Maybe there's 2 years, maybe there's 2 years instead of a 1 year tryout type deal. Like,
he's also young. I mean, we talked about Ronald Jones had an equation, but obviously he kind of limped to the finish in his Tampa Bay time. But you're talking about a 21-year-old running back, free agency at 25. And especially if you've shown well in those starting opportunities with requisite size, 3-down ability, Alexander Mattison checks all those boxes. So this is pretty much the optimal outside, of some maybe off-field issue or something where it's just an over-the-top talent that is getting right to that mid-career point and entering free agency. Mattison pretty much checks all the boxes of pedigree, production, showing those moments, and then also being at the requisite age to maximize, like you said, maybe a 2 or 3 year allegiance.
Hey, maybe Houston will be interested next year.
Maybe they'll be interested now. Wouldn't that be something? Hey, we were on the path. We were sniffing like bloodhounds on the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. Maybe we are onto something. There was a really great story here in the chat. So someone traded KJ Hamler and Tony Pollard for Mike Williams. So that was job well done, first of all. And then they said the other GM used Rex Burkhead as his drop, and he ended up getting him as well off the waiver wire. So turned out he got the best player in the deal. He picks up their drop, which is Rex Burkhead. And that's always a good point. If you're doing a 2-for-1, always offer a few different iterations of a player you get back, because that'll be a player that you don't have to fight for off the waiver wire, a player you may not get, and you may get a higher end player. They may not care which one of 3, 4, 5 guys. They just want to get this deal done. So I always love picking and choosing, the Mark Ingrams of the world of like, who do I think they don't really care about that much? And in this case, job well done, listener, getting Rex Burkhead.
Yes.
All right, some dynasty trades here. 12-team super flex. We got Zach Wilson on the move, and the package was Zach Wilson, Isaiah Spiller, and a second for Cortland Sutton and a third.
I mean, what's your outlook on Wilson would be my question. And
he's going to learn a lot from Joe Flacco.
Heyo. I feel like you have to. I'm not a huge Spiller guy. Spiller's not the running back 2 with the Chargers, by the way. It is Joshua Kelly. So for what it's worth,
they're going to change based on the wind. So we've known that for years. He's just another cog in that machinery of wind.
Correct. I feel like that this is I like Cortland Sutton, but I feel like this is a cheap shot at a quarterback.
Oh yeah, no, this is Wilson all the way. You're really slow playing this.
Yeah, right. And I was like, looking at this.
I don't even like Wilson, and I think that's pretty easy. You're getting the pick upgrade. You're getting a running back that still is one of the more interesting, profiles production wise for earlier day 3. So we'll see how that filters out. Spiller didn't get a ton of cracks, and certainly he wasn't running back. I don't know if any of the 3 games he was running back 2. Roundtree they like for some reason, and it just boggles my brain. But yeah, you take this shot on Zach Wilson in Superflex, and Sutton could blow up, yes, but Wilson's blow up, or even Wilson doing moderate improvement from last year, is going to be easily the best thing in this deal.
Totally. And actually, I think when you go ahead and look at some of where these guys have been going in drafts too, it actually is there's some value there. Wilson over the past month has been going. I think he's been going ahead of Sutton. So you do have some value opportunity there. I'm just checking it right.
It does look like it's someone that really wanted Sutton, and the Sutton GM was like, well, this is what it's going to cost. And they're like, okay, done.
Right. Yeah. Zach Wilson over the past month is going 604 in Superflex drafts, and then Sutton's going 612. So you're already actually going up. You're going from
QB 20 or something,
premium position, and you're going up the board over the past month. Again, that's a lot of that's before he got hurt, but still, in terms of premium asset, rare position, I mean, yes, for sure.
Wilson about QB 20 or so. Is that about right?
Over the past month, he has been 20.5 as his median. So right there.
And again, the thing I like the most is that he's cheaper than all the other guys entering year 2 with some pedigree, had a few moments last year. What I like is the palatable price as much as anything. And at least, they've been building around him, unlike Justin Fields and others. All right, we've got
the Zach Wilson theory. Can I test this out on you for a second?
Sure.
If one of the quarterbacks from last year is going to massively overproduce his price, it's Lance that's set up first, but it's Wilson that's set up second. So like a massive success for any of these guys. Wilson's got probably the second highest range of outcomes because the support system, like if that hits, it could really hit well. They've got redundancy at running back, at wide receiver, at tight end, right? They've addressed each of those positions with quality assets in the past year.
And defense isn't still very good. So
yeah, and their offensive line, that they lost Becton, but their offensive line I think can be an above average unit as well. Like success for Wilson looks really good in a way that I'm not sure Lawrence can do. Like I'm not sure Fields. Like I just don't know how he capitalizes in a way that's truly impact, to a huge impact, where Wilson like has the things that can sort of the stuff that Joe Burrow had last year, where he performed really well and then he had multiplier effects. Wilson has that in a way that only Trey Lance does from last year's class.
Yeah, I go back to the price, and the fact that he's cheaper definitely helps. It's hard to profit. I still think Trey Lance is hard to profit when you start taking him as QB 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right.
But again, he has a sky high ceiling. We've seen that. Strong arm. It almost sounds like the tale of Josh Allen, right? The guy that's going to struggle with accuracy, but mobile, and can make big plays, can extend plays, can run like a running back, can be the goal line back. You put a lot of these factors together, and that's how you can get elite quarterback 1 ceiling. The problem is a lot of people are pricing him near that point already, which makes it very difficult and doesn't give you a lot of outs. And this whole time, again, Mr. Jimmy G was still on the roster. So
yes,
that pressurizes it a lot more than Nate Sudfeld, not to go back to the beginning of the show. All right, next one. We have FFPC Superflex. So shallow, and Superflex makes it even more shallow there. We've got Kyle Pitts, Alexander Mattison, and a second for Deebo Samuel, Brian Robinson, Irv Smith, and a first. So pretty big deal there.
Yeah, so I just started like looking at these assets and crossing stuff off. So I thought Mattison for Robinson was pretty close, set him aside. And then I looked at, I said Irv Smith doesn't really move the needle, especially in this format. Like he's roster fringe almost in this format. So then for me, this deal came down to Deebo in a first for Pitts in a second. In a premium position where roster spots are really important. You don't want to have to try and take a ton of shots on trying to fix tight end. It can really mess with your roster construction in FFPC. You're getting a lead asset at a rare position. Yes, you're going from a first to a second. Like I kind of hope that this isn't a team that's dwelling at the bottom 3 in terms of the power rankings, but assuming that this team's competitive and trying to push for this year. I feel okay giving up that future first because you're getting such a high end. You're getting a top 15 asset in this format. I feel fine doing that because you're going from a non-rare position to a very rare position.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. And I agree with you that Deebo is a little more difficult. Deebo is a little more difficult there, and Pitts can be a solver in terms of saving roster spots. And I think that's key to where you can, for a good chunk of the year, have one tight end. Maybe you roster a second tight end sporadically with buys or injuries. But I really think if you can do that, it makes life a lot easier in FFPC, where you're going to have 2, if not 3, maybe at times 4 quarterbacks on your roster. And again, I view the rest of the part of the trading, as you mentioned, where they cross each other out, and it really does come down to Deebo in a first for Pitts in a second. And Pitts is the more rare unicorn type player that really fits this format well. And I think if you go, it's super flex, and it's deeper rosters and a couple other different dynamics, you could easily go for that first. FFPC super flex one more time, and we've got Trey Lance on the move. with Alec Pierce and Khalil Shakir. I'm kind of wondering how those two are so sturdily rostered in that type of format.
Right.
But basically, Lance plus for Kirk Cousins and Michael Pittman.
So we like Cousins. I'm super curious about why someone would sell the Lance side on this. I don't understand I don't understand the trade from the person trading away Lance in this case. I don't understand their process. I would take Lance simply for the purpose of in this deal. Like, I like Cousins, but you're not doing anything substantial to your roster to take a downgrade from Lance to Cousins in terms of what that cost is by adding Pittman. Right? Pittman doesn't do anything. Again, you're taking an asset that blends in at a non-scarce position, and you're taking a big downgrade in terms of market value quarterback. Again, you and I aren't huge Lance believers, but the move isn't Lance down, it's Lance up. Right? You want to go up, or you want to go lateral at the position. You want to take a big downgrade, and if you're going to take a downgrade, like, you got to take a chunk of a roster and really make yourself better. And I mean, even if Pittman is really good, I don't know how he moves the needle for you.
Yeah, and this is a pro Cousins room. I'm one of the biggest Kirk Cousins people out there,
Yes.
and the detraction of Pittman being the reward for doing this deal is the part that gets me. I think Pittman is a highly risky. Let's rewind 2-3 years. He's basically on the same trajectory of Courtland Sutton. The assumption of taking the step forward, he might, but I think this is one of the riskier wide receiver profiles. When they finish wide receiver like 24 to 35 or 40 for one season, and yet they're 22, 23, 24 years old, the assumption they take the step forward. And a lot of people, I saw Pittman go in the top 8 wide receivers in a startup draft in the last 7 days, Jordan. Like, it's nutty, the names he went over. And you can say after 2, 3, 4, there's not really a consensus. That's fine. But I'm sorry, you can't have Pittman like the next guy, and you can't take him there, would be my biggest take. And it's just the assumption that he's going to take a massive 2-tier step forward, and it's going to happen right now. And if it doesn't happen, you take a bath. And there's so many variables to that it frightens me. So I think, like what you said, you stay flexible. If you're selling Lance, do better. Just frankly, do better. And I'm fine acquiring Cousins, but you don't do it this way, and you don't say the big reward is Pittman. So I have a problem in all those facets with this deal.
Do better. That could be our logo. Just do better.
Footballguys Dynasty Show. Do better. Absolutely do better. All right. Do want to remind you about the daily email update from Joe Bryant. You got analysis from Footballguys staff. You got links to articles, and in season, again, you're not going to want to miss a moment. There's more than 600,000 people, including every single one of your league mates that is on that mailing list. It's up at the right side of the Footballguys homepage. Free email update. Sign up today. Time for the dumbest thing I did this week. I think Jordan contributed last week. It is my turn. Yahtzee. And this is a pro move, a pro dumb thing move, because, and this is higher stakes. So I am a perpetual losing my headphones person.
Oh, okay.
And I've started buying more and more as time goes on. Like, I don't buy one anymore. A few months, like 6 months ago, I ordered 2. I get the cheap ones. They're like $9 because I know myself. They just get lost.
Do they have cords or no cords? You going cord?
No. I'm wearing a corded one right now. Okay. So this last time I bought three corded versions. So recently, though, I started losing those, by the way. And then I bought my first Bluetooth headset thing. So I still went really cheap because I know myself. Okay, this was a record. So come home all sweaty and get the laundry together because, you know, you're wet. You got tons of wet clothes, all this stuff. You put it right in the washer because that's a pro move. Amateur move is you realize 30 minutes into the wash cycle, Bluetooth in the pocket of the shorts, whoop, right in there. Now I did not know. So you see, I'm so dumb that when I make something dumb happen, I didn't know what the dumb result would be. I was like, well, all my other headphones survived.
Yeah.
The ones with the cord survived. But I was like, I don't know how the Bluetooth, and you guess what? You can't open it. Like all these washers these days, there's water everywhere. Right. They lock you in. You can't just open it. So I didn't know what was going to happen. It was like Schrodinger's cat in there.
Just like laying there. Like
exactly. So I was like, well, I'm in for 30 minutes. So I'm in for an hour and a half and let's see how this goes. And I take it out. I didn't dry it. That probably, actually the heat probably would have ultimately killed that.
Mhm.
But it was, and you just don't know. You don't know when you press the button, is it going to turn on?
Mhm.
I swear they work better, Jordan. It should actually say you should wash them, like wash after first use or something is what they should say. So it still worked. No, I'm not going to try to do it again.
Mhm.
But I started looking around the house. I'm like, where? Son of a, they're in the pocket of the shorts that I was wearing not 30 minutes ago before laundry. So that is definitely the dumb thing. And this is positive reinforcement of a bad action. So no, I'm not going to intentionally try, but just know that if that occurs, if someone is dumb, not 10 times in a row like me of washing headphones, but if you're ever dumb like this, just know that you've got a good chance of survival in there. Now, I wouldn't recommend it with the expensive, Bose Quiet or, all these other Apple AirPods and all this stuff. But the cheapy $20 ones from Amazon, they will still work.
Yes, that's funny.
Scary stuff, though.
My wife actually bought me a set of them, and I used it to go on my bike ride. And I made an amateur mistake, which was just to put it in my ear and go. And I'm going down a hill, and that sucker went flying 2 minutes into my ride. So I had
that's my fear.
Yeah,
that's my
so
fear.
You got to tape it to your face. That's the thing. You got to tape it to you take a little piece of tape and tape it to your face. That way it won't blow out.
Yeah, I got the one that wraps around. I wouldn't say it's as comfortable, I'm sure, but at least I know on the bike it's not going to come off.
You never know though. If you get going too well, see, you don't have hills down there, but like on hills,
I'm not Everesting, Jordan.
Yeah, that's true. On hills, like it'll get that you get going real. Like I get going a little too fast, and it'll just it ripped it right out. So just tape it to your face, and it'll.
If I go above like 20, 22 miles an hour, don't get super comfortable on the bike.
Yeah, you don't want to know. You don't want to know how fast I was going when that happened.
I really don't. Do you have logging trucks that are passing you on a bridge though? Because that's my downhill right now, and those logging trucks are legit.
It's a 2-foot decline over a mile as you're downhill.
How dare you, good sir? We were joking. We were joking months and years ago how if I would try Everesting, which is basically you try to go up hills constantly, like in Florida, you'd have to go 5 trillion miles to accomplish said task. It would take you months. There are no
manhole covers. You just got
within covers. 5 miles of your house. You probably have 10 hills that are bigger than anything in the entire state of Florida.
I do. Within.
You're like, I see it.
Meters
I live on a hill.
Yeah.
I live on a hill, Chad.
Right. Yeah.
Our whole house, in every direction, is a hill.
Pretty much.
Like a pyramid. It's like a rounded top pyramid. All right. Quotes from the Footballguys Dynasty Forum this week. Get younger at quarterback. Can't argue with that.
I can. I will gladly argue.
Do years matter, and how much do they matter at quarterback?
I don't know, Chad. I got to an uncomfortable situation this week where I got to I picked at 103 in probably my last startup draft of the year. Had Herbert, and I was like, oh, great. I'll be in on Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Stafford, someone at the end of that first round. Stafford goes a pick in front of me at 21 overall. Russell Wilson went at 107, which is, I don't know who that was, but that was impressive. And then Watson went at 16 overall. So I got to 22 overall, and basically all my quarterback targets were gone. I ended up taking, I believe there was 19 quarterbacks that went in the first 45 picks. So I had to take Tom Brady at 410. That was basically the last of the guys that were trustworthy. So I don't know what my long-term solution is going to be, but I'm pressing my chips in this year and just going for it. It's Kelsey, it's McCaffrey, I'm just going to lean directly into it, and we'll address the future in the future. We'll bankroll that with some winnings from this year is kind of the plan. But no, I don't think going young at quarterback hurts your ceiling, and it hurts your floor when they haven't done it. That's why it's such a mistake for Trey Lance at 203. We should have learned a lesson from Lawrence last year. Right? We should have learned the lesson, and no one learns the lesson. We don't learn the lesson, and you keep seeing people recommending it. And I think we missed a lesson on these things, and it's statistically to a statistically significant level. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but it's better to take a guy at the same cost that's done it multiple times. It's so much better of a bet than the guy that hasn't done it. And and it doesn't, and honestly, it actually doesn't hurt value wise to go the other way either, right? Like to take the older guys, up at the top of the board in lieu of the younger guys that haven't done it. Like it doesn't actually hurt you value wise. It actually helps you preserve your value because your whiff rate is a lot lower. So that would sort of be my lean.
Yeah, I had a super flex startup that went sideways where it's like got Mahomes, life is good, but missed out on Prescott, missed out on Watson, missed out on Stafford, missed out on Cousins early. And I was like, where are we? What is this? Like, who is drafting in this league with me? And, they're playing the hits. And just like, well, let's punt QB2. Well, it got to this point where, what was it, round 5, 6 or whatever. And QB20, Aaron Rodgers is there. I was like, I got to take him. I mean, you're already banking the age erosion discount. Brady was already gone. And I was like, QB20, and then stack it with Jameis Winston, and let's ride. Let's ride with this. So, and you got Mahomes. If everything goes wrong, you still have Mahomes. So you can take some shots on what if Rodgers only plays 1 or 2 years? What if Winston isn't the starter beyond this year? What if he's horrible again? But I at least have chances. Like all three of the, Rodgers and Winston could be massive hits. And it's just, they've been there, they've done that, they've shown, to different levels that, but it's the price point that is the real key part. Other people in that zone are drafting Pickett, and it's like, give me a break.
Right. What's your pivot? So like you're in a spot like I find myself in where I'm a little bit older in terms of quarterback. Like I don't know what my 2023 plan is. What's your pivot? Just take, you just embrace it with, like, I'm staring at Trubisky, and like that's kind of where we are at quarterback at this point. Is your approach just to take it, or just, hey, I'm going to take a couple guys and just kind of hope I hit, or do you say, I'll just, like, I got an extra second, like I'll try and figure it out next year? Like it's an interesting.
I would probably be lying in the weeds because I know the Matt Ryans of the world, the Kirk Cousins, the who's going to be the next Aaron Rodgers, or maybe it's just Aaron Rodgers in November. Like I will try to trade in the marketplace as we get closer. Would be my general overarching plan there.
Wait for an injury and just like pounce, right? Like you find someone in the top 12 to 15 will get hurt and suffer a significant
what if Dak is QB 16 through the first couple months of the year? Right. Like just be lurking like a panther.
Wait for someone to make a mistake and say, I'm going to rebuild, and then just give them all their rebuilding assets and take the quarterback. Yeah. Okay.
Then take it on the rebound. Next one. J.K. Dobbins looked good last time we saw him. He's young and he's on a team that loves to run the ball.
He might not start week 1.
Right.
It's scary.
But he looked good last time we saw him, Jordan.
He was.
Significant injury since.
How are we going to see like what's the over under on Mike Davis starts? Like a handful, like 5.5.
Like, that's significant. Yeah. Week 1, confident week 1. Gus Edwards on the shelf for a while. Dobbins, complicated recovery. Not looking good optics there beyond Mike Davis for sure. And especially if they sign someone else like Kenyon Drake, they're already kicking the tires. Like we need bodies,
right?
Yeah, not their day 3 running back that they drafted.
Yeah, some of the quotes on Dobbins aren't promising. So
we'll see. Don't you love the we'll see stuff?
Yeah, right.
How's week 1 looking? We will see. Yes, we will all together.
Yes.
Positive coach speak, not present.
Right.
Not enabled on this.
44 hours away. I'm really excited for
exactly.
it. Yes. Yeah.
We'll see. We're taking it day by day. That means week to week. Got it. Moving on.
Right.
Kittle is worth David Njoku and Tony Pollard by himself.
What's the format? I mean,
doesn't matter.
In a premium format, he's worth more than that.
Well, I would argue he's worth more either way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, he can make. He's on the list of guys that could finish his quarterback as tight end 1, and I think that's really worth paying for.
Is he the stat? I think I looked up. Is he he's the only guy to have his level of efficiency the past 3 years all in a row? Like he's the only one in the entire NFL. Mm-hmm. Like I think Andrews has 2, and then you have a bunch of guys that have 1 or maybe one other guy that has 2, but Kittle has 3. He's just been a monster. Goddard has 2, I think.
Yeah. Him and the two of those guys led the league in yards per route run. Like they were 100th of a yard difference per route run last year. Like those are the guys. Like you take those guys, and honestly, like Pollard's fine, but that's a replaceable profile where the jump from Joku to Kittle is just enormous in terms of the range of outcomes.
Yeah, I'm not saying drop all the way down to Matt Breida, but I've been doing a lot more, I don't know about you, Jordan, of arbitraging the backup quarterback and the backup running back.
Mm-hmm.
Of saying, like, if I can get, like, if you're telling me Pollard is a decent amount more expensive than Mattison, how about we flip-flop those? Or if we're going to, within the same buckets, like Tyler Huntley feels like he has a lot of appeal. I don't know if people think that he's going to be a future starter in this league. But if you can go Huntley to somebody else and get a pick, like, why don't you just do it? I mean, they all need an injury.
Right.
So let's stop trying to be the smartest guy, weather vaning out there with a stick, like trying to figure it out. Like half the league is going to see some starts and some of them more significantly, but good luck predicting if it's going to happen in Baltimore or Arizona or Green Bay. I mean, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. I mean, yeah. I fostered a deal with somebody that they moved Huntley and basically transitioned over to Garoppolo. And it's a slam dunk because you have week 1 outs in the future. You have a guy that's actually done it. And I think Tyler Huntley isn't even that good. So I don't think he's ever going to be a week 1 starter ever in the NFL. So you're waiting on an injury.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a guy that frankly is an erratic passer. So good luck on that ever being worth anything substantial. Because the more he plays, the probably more he's going to show how he's not a future starter in the league.
Yeah.
Eventually he'll be a pumpkin. All right, last one. I like DK Metcalf, but his quarterback situation warrants a big discount. What are your thoughts on Seattle not getting Garoppolo? They're doing this thing with Geno Smith and secondarily Drew Lock.
Yeah, boy are they ever. I mean, like this is a good. I think it's a good reminder that when you take big bets at wide receiver on the future, just remember how quickly it can change, right? I think that is maybe a lesson from this offseason when people really invest in, hey, this is a great long-term situation for this receiver. Like we've seen half a dozen, if not more of those change pretty significantly just this year. Adams, AJ Brown,
especially if you have an older quarterback, right? I mean, if you have Josh Allen, that probably is a lot more, or Justin Herbert, it's probably a lot more predictable than if you are banking on Tom Brady right now or Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson was deep into his 30s, Matt Ryan, those types. Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, like, you get to a point where even Tyreek Hill, though, like you have a guy in his prime, like where it just becomes tough to afford him. Right. So I do think that there's like a balance here in terms of what we thought was longevity a long time ago can really change quickly, right? And you take from as much as Tyreek Hill wants to blow smoke up Tua's hind parts, it's a huge downgrade from Mahomes to Tua, right? It's just a huge downgrade in terms of what he can do. So these things are changing a lot. I think that might be a lesson that we learn here as we start to see more movement at the receiver position and as the economics of that position change. So I think overall, it's probably a takeaway that I would have from this offseason. The Metcalf thing specifically, again, I don't put a ton of we're going to invest in long-term valuation at wide receiver in the market because if you just don't do that, you get a ton of discounts at similar production, right? So that's part of what I would say. So again, I don't like to make the bet of like insulation. And I think honestly, DK Metcalf's probably going to disappoint this year and he's going to be a downgrade. So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, I think Metcalf and Lockett to way different price points. I'm monitoring them both because I think there's a possibility Metcalf, if he finishes in like the wide receiver 30s, then he's going to drop a good amount.
Discount, right?
Yeah, and exploring that profile of a guy that's had a high ceiling before, likely quarterback upgrade in the next 6 to 12 months. And then you got Tyler Lockett, who's currently, I think, outside the top 50 wide receivers. At his age, he can go to the 70s or the 80s. And that's going to be something you buy on the discount rack of a guy that's been there, done that many times. So I think both of those guys mid-season, but also right when the season gets done, those are the types of players to profile hunt. And whether, again, but not counting on them for anything significant this year, I think is the key point, even if you're acquiring them in October, November, that those are the key points there.
I don't understand why Tyler Lockett hasn't been a trade candidate. That's one thing that I don't understand. He doesn't have guaranteed salary after this year. He's going to have a $16.8 million cap hit in 2020 in 2023. They could save they could save more than half of that by trading him and reset the and basically try and reset the clock.
They're going to win with Geno, Jordan.
Man. Could you imagine if he landed in Green Bay, what that would do?
Yeah.
I've thought all along, I'm like, come on, isn't that it's a chance that happens. But I do think actually that Geno Smith, there's a chance that Geno Smith isn't bad. He actually was decent last year. And I think if you're betting on DK Metcalf as being a high end asset, I'd be a little cautious on that. But if there's going to be a big discount on him, we might be surprised that Geno Smith can actually not fall on his face, right? That would sort of be the thing that I would say about this is that if you're going to get a steep discount on DK Metcalf, I'm in, but I don't want to pay and say, oh, I'm not doing that with the idea. He's wide receiver 12 right now. That's not a discount. I need that to be.
Well, he could fall into the 20s pretty easily.
Correct.
For next off season.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. What if Tyler Lockett outscores him this year?
Totally possible.
What happens then? Because the upside, looking at that quarterback wide receiver connection historically, you put a bad quarterback situation and that wide receiver 2 has horrible historical odds of anything. So both of them were top 24, haha, great time, daisy chains and going to the park. That's not with Russell Wilson. That's not happening this year. So there's probably going to be one quasi survivor and then one loser of this. And it's going to be very interesting to see which is which. If it's the older Lockett that is the quote unquote survivor, I'm very interested. I'm in for this. Again, I'll be buying Lockett I'll be buying Metcalf if he's wide receiver 30 something for prices and trading 3 months from now or in January. I'm all in. But
you can turn your Dameon Pierce shares into DK Metcalf in September. I'm all in.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We had one thing from the chat. So just weigh in really quickly. What are your thoughts on Alvin Kamara, Jordan? Especially for redrafters coming up this next week, where Kamara's falling into the second round.
I think he's a great bet if you want to try and get someone that can really make a difference on your team. I think he's a good bet in Dynasty. He's a really good bet. He's up there in he's right in the. Someone put it out there today, and I really agree with it. It was if Christian McCaffrey is not your 101, you're a coward. And I sort of thought, I was I outwardly chuckled while I was drinking my coffee at Starbucks. But I also think the same thing about Kamara. If he's not up in your top 5, I think you're missing out because he has that, he's got the efficiency. It's him and McCaffrey. Their touches have been historically incredibly valuable. And I think that people are discounting them wrongly. So McCaffrey has the ability to really swing your league, and he's underpriced. I mean, if he swings your league from the mid running back 2s in cost right now, he's already paid for that. And I don't think he's going to be suspended this year.
Yeah, I had some questions about Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. I love how you gravitated on those two guys, because someone said, someone just casually was talking to me about, just a friends and family sort of draft, and they're like, yeah, so who would you take after Jonathan Taylor? And I said, so I guess I can't answer Christian McCaffrey because I would take him before. I feel like you're trapping me in a closet here of my own emotions. But Kamara, yeah, I mean, I got him in quote unquote expert draft at 16. I thought about him in the late first, and I was like, well, I think I'm going to have a shot on him here in the early second. And sure enough, he made it. But yeah, I think, and we've been firm in this, all the legal analysis it's pointing to 2023, not 2022, which is a huge difference. He's going around later. He would be somewhere in the round 1 zone if suspension was looming a lot more prevalently than it is. And it just is not. Expect him to play the full year. That could change, but he's also a guy that can help win your league, where you can absorb that, the late first, the early second, you can absorb that being having some level of suspension and just basing on the information, because the upside is he's not missing one game due to that this year.
Yeah, I'm super skeptical that the suspension is going to happen this year. So I'm all in for 2022.
All right. In this episode, we discussed dynasty trading, a lot about Trey Lance, the 49ers situation up at the top of the show, Dameon Pierce, as well as taking a shot on someone like Zach Wilson if the price is right, the value of Kyle Pitts, maybe just rostering one tight end there in FFPC, the value of that. And of course, the sleeper stash of the week, Mr. Rex Burkhead this week, being one that people are going to forget about in Houston as everyone is thinking about Dameon Pierce. I am Chad Parsons. He's Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your dynasty